Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another
it!
one! Another
Oladipo!
one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Worked out by Burke. Bounces into Cody. Puts it up. Scores!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome in. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you here on this Tuesday. Kevin Brockway with me as always. Mike DeCourcy will be joining us, Chronic Hoosier as well. Plenty to talk about. Pressers from yesterday. The debacle going on in Jacksonville. The Urban Meyer experience not going well down there, Kevin.
Yeah, kind of a gloomy Tuesday, setting the mood for the rough weekend. A little overcast and rainy here the last couple of days, kind of setting the mood for the tough weekend for the Hoosiers to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, all because of one targeting call. I'm sure you talked about that a lot yesterday.
But I while the targeting play had a huge impact, I can't say that that's what caused this loss. I mean, Indiana had opportunity after opportunity that they just could not take care of.
Yeah, and 4 turnovers. You can't turn the ball over against a good team like that. Cincinnati had something to do with that, but
you can't fumble the ball on the 2-yard line.
Yeah,
you can't force an interception that gives them the ball with right before halftime the ability to score. Those things, right, and the roughing the quarterback penalty when they had them stopped. And then that turns around and let them score again.
Yeah.
Right there. That is the game in mistakes.
Yeah.
Indiana makes too many mistakes. And they snatch victory or defeat from the jaws of victory, like you said. And they did against Cincinnati is not a top 10 team, in my opinion. That was not a top 10 team. Indiana's defense is elite. Their offense is average, but all they had to do was not make mistakes, and they would have easily won this guy. I think they win that game by 2 touchdowns if it weren't for the mistakes that they made.
Yeah, no, I agree. Though there were a lot of miscues, but I think the like you said with the defense, but is the defense elite when you lose one player and it makes an impact? And now this week will be interesting because you're going to have Monster, you're going to have Devin Matthews back, who's also an All Big Ten player, and you just got to keep your fingers crossed and hope that McFadden learns from this, and you can get into the whole targeting ejection thing and whether it's fair or not. And that's something that we're going to write about. And we addressed with Tom Allen in the presser yesterday about, should there be flagrant 1 or flagrant 2s? I thought it was interesting.
I'll guarantee you by next season that's in place.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I thought it was kind of interesting how Tom didn't necessarily like my follow-up about the targeting question. Just because I thought when I was going to ask the question, I kind of thought that he would get into like the tape or the reasoning why, and he just said, "I'm entitled to my judgment." I'm like, all right, well,
What did he? I didn't hear it. What did he say?
When he asked, he said it's not targeting. We watched on the film, and then I said, well, what specifically did he disagree with? Like, I thought maybe he would give some kind of breakdown about it was pushed in or something of the intent of the rule, and he's just like, I'm entitled to my judgment. So, all right, there you have it. But, even McFadden admitted that he got him face mask to face mask. But it was
he said our face mask crossed. He didn't say that he hit him with my face mask. Our face mask crossed, which means in the course of it happening, both players move, and you can't control the trajectory of the other player. That's the thing that gets me. Don Fisher pointed out something yesterday. Every time a running back goes in, they lead with their head. They lower their head. How about when they stiff arm somebody and grab them by the face mask? Yeah, I mean, it's drives me insane, the stupidity of certain things, but there's nothing dumber than ejection for this. If it was
not only that, I do think that brings to the point there's a gamemanship, to this. Spencer Ritter knew that he even admitted post game, and I was able to get this quote from Pat Forty and Rick Bozich that he said 47 was the best player on their defense. So you don't think Spencer Ritter is thinking in the back of his mind, hey, if I lower my helmet here, I could get this guy out of the game. I think there's a little bit of a gamemanship too with offensive players where they try to provoke it.
Very well, because they know they get away with it, because it works, because officials sometimes are really, I mean, I know they work hard, and I know that there are some people that listen that are officials, but sometimes they do some things that are just really dumb that make no sense. When you see that they have a replay and you're like, really? They're going to call this and we're all looking at this? I don't understand that, but it is what it is. We've seen Big Ten officiating do things that doesn't make a lot of sense at a lot of other times, but Indiana seems to have really been affected by targeting in the last couple of years. You know, a couple of years ago at Penn State, when Wap Flutter gets knocked out of the game by an obvious targeting call that wasn't called. And this is in the heat of when they were really trying to implement this rule. How in the hell did they not call that? And then they called this one off of a replay that had nothing to do with the play.
Yeah, and also I think there was an Ohio State, Minnesota, the opener, where it looked like an Ohio State player had a targeting on a Minnesota player that wasn't called. So it's very, the rule is right now, it's very hard to, for them to get it right, I think, and that's a big issue. And that's what Melton and I are going to be writing about this week, actually. So.
Forrest is not happy with Nick Sheridan. Said he thought he made some comments in the presser yesterday that he stated he saw progress with Penix and the offense. Anyone else see progress? Well, I can't say that I did, because like I said, just not making mistakes would have won that game. They didn't even have to make progress. They just had to not make mistakes.
I mean, they gained yards. They did. They gained more yards. They had a few They had one explosive play. They could have had another. Freifogel dropped it, but that's on the offense. And again, the turnovers. 4 turnovers is what kills you every time.
Freifogel, another story. Got several drops, man. Several drops of balls that he comes down with. Someone commented yesterday, "Oh, it's funny how all you pundits were counting all these wins for Indiana, yada yada." I'm like, well, no one expected the offense to go into the dumpster. I mean, that was my predication on what Indiana season was going to be, was thinking this offense would pick up from where they left off last year, which was better than where they are right now. The offensive line has dropped off, and that makes no sense because they're better. They're more experienced. It makes no sense. But now you're looking at the quarterback situation, and if this offense does not make progress in the first half of this week, you have to bring in Jack Tuttle. You have to, because otherwise then you're going to waste a week of preparation going into a Penn State game that you got to play.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see. They seem very wed to Penix. I asked the question, and they seem wed to him, but through thick and thin. Which is interesting. And I think their feeling is that the big play potential still, is there for him. If he can, get through what he's getting through right now, which is the decision making, which is, still being a little unsure, still being caught in between, and him pressing and trying to make plays.
See, what I don't understand is, and I wanted to get a question from Nick Sheridan, why is he pressing? What is it? Is it if he's feeling fine physically, why is he pressing, having played this position in this offense for this long with these guys? There's supposed to be such comfort, and I see no comfort out there for him.
Yeah, no, and that's a fair point. And I think it's because of the fact that no spring, and but he tried to throw over the summer. He tried to throw in camp. I thought it was very telling when I asked about the turnover issue and whether they saw it in camp, and he said, yeah, they did. And I guess it was that second scrimmage, and we didn't see any scrimmage when the defense dominated the offense, where maybe those turnover issues were really bad. And maybe they were thinking, oh, well, it's just, the way that, Indiana's defense plays or takeaway defense. Once we face these teams, we might be a little better. But apparently that's not the case. They're still making those mistakes. The timing is off. A lot of it is, I wouldn't say it's like the velocity on Penix's throw, but the accuracy is just off. He's just not
wait.
hitting his targets. The Hendershot.
Sometimes it looks like he's just throwing the ball up.
And that last interception, I mean, desperation play, 3rd and 17, you're throwing across your body. Still not a smart call. Maybe if you're Nick Sheridan and who knows where the plays go to, maybe you set up a play where it's a shorter chunk play because that's 4-down territory. And instead he's trying to go for the whole thing and he's flush out of pocket because, the pass protection is spotty. But, I mean, it was still a terrible decision. You look at the Hendershot, that's just being inaccurate. That throw is just, you've got to get it on the outside shoulder, and it was inside, to the point where, I mean, Hendershot couldn't even play DB on that play because I think it was thrown so fast. So,
and I'm not trying to create controversy, but Michael Penix is not going anywhere after this season.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone that thinks that he's going to the NFL, they're out of their mind after this season. So that tells me you think Jack Tuttle's going to sit there and wait for another year?
Yeah.
I don't see that.
Well, you could make the argument then that if you get Penix through this year, that next year, because usually it's the year after with the ACL when the quarterbacks get back to normal, that maybe, you stick with him and then maybe the following year he has the huge year.
Okay, well, then Tuttle's not going to hang around for that, A. B, then you're going to have
McCauley, you have the kid from Texas.
I was going to say, then you've got more kids coming in. Right. It's going to be.
You've got Dexter Williams, who is also coming off an ACL, but you've got guys. I mean, you've got a deep quarterback room, and if Jack wants to stay, he'll stay. If not, but we'll see how things transpire. It's going to be an interesting next few weeks, and we'll see how poorly Penix plays in the first half against Western Kentucky, and maybe it just forces Tom's hand to go with Jack, and then Jack will get his opportunity, and we'll see what he does with it.
I'd like to have seen him come in the second half of that Cincinnati game. I think Indiana could have won that game. I think they're going to look back on that Cincinnati game as the game that they really let go of all the games this season. Iowa was just a better team. They were prepared. They were better coached. Indiana was not going to win that game. Now, in hindsight, looking back, no way. I had no idea how good Iowa really was at the start of the season. Usually they don't get off to great starts. Man, they were ready. Indiana, oh my gosh, we're thinking that, man, they're coming back with all the pieces on this offensive line, and they've added to the running backs room. The defense is even a little bit more solid, but it's not been close. And it's centered around the offense. Michael Penix, the offensive line. I think the offensive line improved over the weekend. They didn't give up. Did they give up one sack?
Yeah, I thought they were a little better in pass protection, but again, Tom Allen said the snap to Penix on that 4th and 1 play. And again, new center. You don't have Harry Kreider. You've got Dylan Powell.
Okay, but first of all. That, to me, the 4th and 1 play, that's on Nick Sheridan. Why in the world are you giving the ball to your least effective runner on the most important play of the game? And it's the only time he went under center the whole game. What do you think he's going to do? They knew what was coming. I think that was I think that was a huge mistake. They get that first down. That's another thing. You get that first down, bam. It's just the simplistic of mistakes that Indiana made was mind-boggling in that game.
What about taking the points there early on? 7-0 defense is playing great. I mean, that's the other thing too.
That would have.
Tom Allen felt like I know what Tom Allen said post game about touchdowns. But your defense was dominating that game. And you keep the momentum going. Maybe just take the points there. Take the 3.
You could have done that, but I think they could have easily gotten the first down had they chose virtually any other running play and not Michael Penix. That's not who I'm giving it to for that play. If I need 1 yard, I'm not giving it to Michael. I'm nothing against him. I'm going to give it to Stephen Carr. He had up until that point early on, they were successful running the ball. Now his carry average per carry really dropped as the game went on. That's another thing. His averages per carry drops as the games seem to go on. I think he was down to like 2.5 yards per carry.
21 for 52. Yeah, no, it was not good. And Baldwin started out really well, and then obviously he had the fumble in the fourth quarter, and I think Steven was up to 21 carries, and I could see why they had Baldwin in that situation, but it didn't work out. And the kid from Cincinnati made a good play. Beavers poked the ball away, and
don't say the word Cincinnati. That reminds me of baseball. Mike DeCourcy joining us next too. We'll talk about the Reds and amongst other things. They're free falling. Play some Tom Petty. Free falling.
Didn't they beat the Pirates last night though?
I haven't checked the scores, but I'm worried that it may be too little, too late.
The Cardinals are just gangbusters right now.
They're killing it. Hey, make sure you stop by our good friends at Southern Stone Restaurant, especially on Wednesday night. That's where the coaches shows. Don Fisher will be there with Tom Allen, 7:05. The coaches show's happening there. 405 West Patterson. It's at Patterson and Rogers. Make sure you stop by. And our great friends from Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington, AndyMooreHonda.com. Go there, order your Honda, or have it ready waiting for you. We're back with Mike DeCourcy right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans.
Yeah, Reds won 9-5 last night.
Yeah, but it's too little, too late. I'm worried. I'm afraid.
I think you're only like a game behind the Cardinals. You just got to get the Cardinals.
Man, they were 3 games back when I checked yesterday.
The Cardinals 80-69, and the Reds are 78-73. Yeah. The Cardinals are starting to pull away, man. But, maybe the Brewers will get their act together and win these next couple of games in that series, and they can make up some ground.
The Brewers are playing the Cardinals?
Yeah, but the Cardinals beat them last night 5-2. They're still winning.
Gosh, dang it.
They swept the Mets. They've been.
Hey, Mikey.
Gentlemen, how are you?
Lamenting the Reds collapse. The Reds collapse like Indiana did against Cincinnati.
Oh, I'll tell you, the Reds. You know what? When the Reds really lost it when they didn't take the Pirates out. They should have destroyed the Pirates last week. And when they opened that door and they knew the Dodgers were coming in and that they were going to have a difficult time there. And they they should have, if they had gone into the weekend, right there, they would have only lost, I think, 2, they'd be going into this a game or 2 games down. Instead, they're 3. And when I looked at the schedule, I said, the only way now with the number of games left, the only way that they have back into this is if they had remaining games with the Cardinals where they could do head-to-head damage, and they don't. So they're not making it back. There's no way.
Man, that's a collapse.
Absolutely. Whiz. I mean, it's like, for those of us of a certain vintage, it's like the 69 Cubs, man. I mean, not that they were as good or, but they just, they realize if they had just played 500 baseball over the last 6 weeks of the season or 5 weeks, whatever the number, if they had just played 500 baseball, they'd have made the playoffs. Just 500.
What's the greatest collapse in baseball history?
The 69 Cubs always strikes me, but the
how big a lead did they have?
Let's see how big that was.
Didn't the Red Sox in 78 have like a 14
I was just going to mention that. Yes,
that was another one. And then the Mets in 07 had a 7-game lead over the Phillies with 17 to play, and they blew that. That was really bad too. Being a Mets fan, I remember that.
All right, here we go. Coming back.
Because you're my BFF. Banking friends forever.
Right now, get free checking with online banking. And all the products of big city banks with hometown service.
With First Federal, you can do that.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sillersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you on this Tuesday from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Mike DeCourcy joining us now from Sporting News. How are you, sir?
I am well, Jim. How are you?
Great. We're just sitting here in the in a break, going through lamenting the collapse of the Cincinnati Reds as they were heading towards a nice little playoff spot until they decided to quit playing, I guess.
Well, it just 500 baseball, Jim, over the last 5-6 weeks of the season, and they almost certainly would have made it. I've seen some stats on Twitter over the last 24 hours or so that, according to the math people, that the Cardinals had somewhere in the neighborhood of a 7 or 8% chance of making the playoffs in the first week of September, and now it's close to 80%.
Well,
so
they've won 9 out of their last 10 games.
Yeah. I mean,
and I don't know how far beyond that it goes.
Well, great credit to them for doing that. I mean, they are not backing into this, but
nope.
Again, if the Reds or the Padres had played basically 500 baseball in that period, they were far enough ahead of the Cardinals that it probably wouldn't have made a difference. But not both of them have been disastrous, and obviously San Diego's been perhaps even worse because they've got arguments in the dugout. The Reds are going down a bit more docilely than that, but the difference being the Padres in early September were looking at a month filled with games against the Dodgers and the Giants, and the Reds were looking at a month filled with games against the Marlins and the Pirates, and it hasn't mattered. They still have stunk,
and that is awful to do that, to have a path just laid out like the yellow brick road, and to do that is unbelievable. The Padres, they've only won 2 out of their last 10, but like I said, the Cardinals, man, they're winning, and that's what you got to do. Hey, and that's what better to have than a winning streak going into a playoff appearance on top of that. But like you said, they're not backing into anything, man. They're taking it. So that reminds me, we were talking about the biggest collapse. The Reds had this thing. All they had to do, you said, just play 500 ball, man. They could have made it in. What was the biggest collapse in baseball that you were talking about? The 69 Cubs potentially.
78 Red Sox, who were
yeah.
I mean, the 78 Red Sox were well ahead of the Yankees, and wound up in a 1-game playoff, and Bucky Dent won that game for the Yanks. So those are the 2 that stick out in my lifetime. I'm sure that
how about Oakland? Oakland under the Moneyball year. How far back who was in the lead, and how far back were they? Weren't they pretty good ways back?
Now that one, I do not know that one.
I can't remember exactly what year that was. Was that like, I don't know, 2002? They ended up losing to Milwaukee or the Twins in the playoffs, but
right.
But they had come from way back, and but I can't remember. But that's just another one. But yeah, it's fun to watch those runs, though, to watch these teams, because baseball it doesn't happen like overnight. It's just like this wave that's slowly coming at you, and you can see it, but it's still coming in slow motion.
Yes, that's exactly right. For both the Padres and the Reds, it's been a slow motion disaster, and it really for the Reds, it began right before Labor Day when they went to Florida to play the Marlins, and should have cleaned up down there and did not. And the Reds are now they are losers of 8 consecutive series. So if they're able to beat the Pirates today, then they would win that series, and that would be their first series victory in more than a month. That's, I mean, you can't blow it any more definitively than that. They had played very well prior to that. I mean, there was a point, at the 4th of July or the All-Star break, right around there, when they were only 4 games back of the Brewers, and it looked like they had a legit chance to challenge for the division lead. And some of their inability to do that came from the Brewers really playing great baseball and taking it to a level that the Reds couldn't match. But even with injuries and such, there's no reason why a team with their roster and their starting rotation and the money the trade capital they invested in trying to make the bullpen at least passable which it's been, there's no reason why they should be in the position that they are now.
And don't forget, Votto is having a borderline MVP year. I mean, he's been terrific.
Yeah, although disappointingly, he has not been terrific during that difficult stretch. He's had good moments, but his best baseball was played April to August, and he has struggled in September as well.
As have the Reds. as Votto goes, the Reds seem to go, unfortunately. But oh well, we're there, man. Your duties are getting closer and closer with the Big Ten as basketball season is inching closer and closer. Are you in preparation mode for that yet?
I'm looking forward to. We're 2 weeks and change away from Big Ten Basketball Media Day here in Indianapolis at Bankers Life Fieldhouse.
Wonderful, by the way.
Yeah, nice. It saves me a 3.5 hour drive and having to go through all the airport traffic out by O'Hare. So that's good. And it'll be nice. The Bankers Life is a fabulous building. And it was such a success to have the media day for football at Lucas Oil Stadium that it made sense to go ahead and do something similar for basketball. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's always, we didn't have one last year, and I missed it because I really like the people in the Big Ten. There's so many really wonderful coaches that are such good people: Matt Painter, Chris Holtman, Greg Gard, Tom Izzo, Juwan Howard. They're all really good guys to be around. A chance to get acquainted with some of the players and hear their stories, and a chance to get together with all my friends in the media. From all the markets. I've got friends in every market of the Big Ten. So I really, that's one of my favorite days of the year. So I'm really glad it's back and very much excited about the format at Bankers Life. One of the things that made the football media day successful was that for BTN's purposes, the shots of the building where the championship will be decided, certainly a step above a ballroom in a hotel.
Yes.
Nothing against hotels and ballrooms, but that visual and there is no more visually stunning arena in American basketball, in modern American basketball than Bankers Life. Of all the modern buildings, it's the most. And
they've just gone through a renovation on top of that.
Yes. I'm looking forward to seeing that as well, what it looks like. I know they've made some adjustments to that, and so I'm excited to see how it looks.
Yeah, me too.
Just don't have Mark Turgeon and Juwan Howard in tables close to each other after that tough up last year.
But that is, like Mike says, it's my favorite day as well, because you're literally sitting at a little round ballroom table with Tom Izzo or whomever you're talking about. You're sitting at a table with them talking, and that's the only opportunity I'm going to get for that the entire season. And it's that opportunity. That's the only time it comes. And I think that they're a little more. I'm sure I know they're guarded, but they're also a little more open at that point. It's because it's the environment. They're sitting down, they're talking to you like regular people. I think they feel a little less in coach mode at that moment or on stage mode. And it just seems like better conversation comes at those little tables.
Yeah. It's one of the nice things to see coming back after a year and a season really of trying, of challenges that were really difficult for all the teams to get through. It was obviously different for all of us in the media to interact with the people we cover. So really excited about that. Again, that's I believe it's the 7th and 8th of October, and it'll be here at Bankers Life Fieldhouse. Obviously, BTN will provide coverage of that on television. And people like me and Kevin will be writing and talking about it.
Why not? But, it's interesting, too. Like, you talk about how coaches are so open and stuff. And I remember when I started covering spring training 20 years ago, these spring training writers had this, everything is Disneyland, right? Everyone's 0-0. So there's always boundless optimism when you're 0-0 and, everything is just turning out fresh before the rest of the season.
Great Big Ten Media Day story. I believe it was 2013 Media Day. Matt Painter, who now enters the season as one of the favorites, if not the favorite, to win the Big Ten in 2022, came to Big Ten Media Day and said, basically, I screwed up. They were coming off a season in which I believe they went 5-13. I think the league was still playing 18 games at that point. They were 5-13. And he said, this is totally on me. I screwed up. This is not the way. I recruited guys who weren't Purdue guys, who didn't fit the program, who didn't fit what I wanted. I'm going back to recruiting Purdue guys. And since that day, I think they've made every NCAA tournament was contested. Obviously, 2020, there was no NCAA tournament, but I believe they've made every NCAA tournament was contested since. They've recruited the team that missed by this much, making the Final Four in 2019. They have the group now that's certainly among the favorites to win the Big Ten, and certainly going to be ranked in the preseason top 10 or top 12 of just about everybody's polls or rankings. And he did it all because he said, we got to go back to getting the guys who fit this program. And so many players like Travion Williams. Could you ask for a player who fits your program better than a Travion Williams, who could easily have just taken the road to the NBA, that second round, get picked in the second round maybe and sign a 2-way contract or whatever, and said, no, man, we got a chance to do something really special this year, and I want to be a part of it, and comes back to Purdue. There have been many others, Carson Edwards, so many along the way in that period of time since he recommitted. And that's really important to be able to understand what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. It's the same thing Jay Wright did at Villanova. I don't know that he made the public proclamation that Matt did, but after they started to do great, he said, hey, I told my guys, you got to recruit guys that fit this program. We can't just go by the recruiting charts. They're good players, but they don't fit, and it didn't work. And they had a losing season in the early part of last decade. And of course, they've since won multiple NCAA championships. So understanding your own program, understanding what fits and what works is really important. And it's one of the things that, when teams have a year like Purdue did, and when they went 5-13, or like when Jay won 11 games at Villanova, so many people fire the coach. And sometimes it's just about recognizing you have a great coach and making sure he understands that you're on the same page and he's on the same page, that you got to go back to doing what works, because this is not working.
Absolutely, I agree. And we've seen too many times. We talked earlier about Indiana football right now and the quarterback situation. How long do you hang on to that? Because you've got a guy in the wings that played all last season, and those are, for coaches, I know and football that takes it a different direction there, but it's kind of hard to give up on your quarterback. It's kind of hard to give up on the guy who's led you through spring practice, who has come back from all that he's come back from, and who you put all that confidence in. And so it doesn't matter which sport you're talking about, but man, that confidence that you bring forth to those guys, it has to be real and genuine, and you can't just pull them.
It's a delicate balance, because if you don't show that kind of loyalty, it does have an impact on your team and your players. If they see, well, if he's given up on Michael that quickly, what if I have a problem? How's he going to stick by me? And so they're weighing that. Plus, they're weighing the actual loyalty. He really cares about Michael and how he does. But then there's also the loyalty to the team of, we could maybe win this game or these games if we make a change. So it's a really difficult circumstance that Tom finds himself in. It's the least enviable position of all coaching decisions, is that decision that he's in the middle of right now. Others, which defense to play, which offense to play, that kind of stuff, which play to call. Some of that stuff's going to work or not work, and it's really up to them to make it happen. But that one that you're looking at now, and especially in football with the quarterback position, I'm not sure that there's anything comparable to that. because if you take a tight end out and you could put a second one on the field, or you could just take him out for a couple of plays and then see how it goes, and then maybe he learns a lesson and then he comes back in and he does great. But with quarterbacks, it's so consequential. Everything flows from him. Nobody plays two quarterbacks really and does it successfully. So
that's tried. I remember back in the day, and that was
yeah, it's hard. It's because everything changes unless you have two identical quarterbacks with identical skill sets.
Yeah.
And that's, and in that case, you're probably also going to have identical mentalities and they're going to have the same problem. So it's really hard. As I said, I don't envy him this decision. I understand why he is reluctant to make the decision to change. And some of that is just honestly the challenge of the schedule. They decided to schedule Cincinnati, which is a terrific team. If they were playing a MAC opponent there, maybe a less talented MAC opponent, maybe Michael, some things could have gotten right and they could have gotten over a hump. So it's the bad luck of that circumstance as well.
Yeah, Jay, I've seen a lot of people ask, what would Nick Saban or Daboll do regarding the quarterback? Well, the difference here is Nick Saban, if you look in the NFL, there's 3 quarterbacks in there right now that he had in succession. That's the kind of quarterback. Those are the options he has. He's got options of guys that are playing in the NFL, that are playing at New England, that are playing wherever Fields is playing, Tua's playing. There's a difference when you have NFL after NFL after NFL quarterback to choose from. That's not the case in Indiana. You don't have 4 NFL quarterbacks sitting on the sideline.
But you remember a few years ago when Trevor Lawrence was coming along and he was a freshman. And Kelly Bryant was at Clemson, and I believe, if I remember correctly, he had won the national championship. There's not if there was a Trevor Lawrence on Indiana's bench, I mean, legit, then it's not a hard decision because Trevor Lawrence was going to be great for as long as he was in the program, and he probably was only going to be there for 3 years because he was going to become the first pick in the NFL draft once he became eligible. So if you sat on him for his freshman year, that's one less year you get out of him. Plus, he's not as ready as a sophomore. So it wasn't a hard call when he finally decided to bench Kelly Bryant and move on to Trevor Lawrence. Indiana doesn't have Trevor Lawrence on the bench. That's not what you have. You maybe have a alternative who is superior to this version of Michael Penix. And that's the question that Tom Allen has to answer. And I don't think he's going to make that decision without giving Michael every chance.
I agree 1,000%. What do you have coming up next, Mike?
What I have next is I'm going to be writing an article about Brian Kelly and his, being on the precipice of passing Newt Rockne for the number 1 position in career victories at Notre Dame and everything that's gone into that. It's a really interesting circumstance that, his next victory will be the 106th at Notre Dame. And that, at one of the greatest programs in the history of college football, is a record. Like, you wouldn't think that would be enough to break a record at a place like Notre Dame, but there are a variety of circumstances that have led to that. The tragedy of Rockne's death in a plane crash being the foremost among them. I mean, Rockne probably would have ended up winning 200, 250 games if he hadn't perished in that plane crash. But then subsequent to Newt, there have been all kinds of different reasons why coaches have left short of breaking that record.
What's the longest, other than Brian Kelly? I'm trying to think. Is 10 years the longest?
He's 11 years now, I believe. And I think presuming he stays to next year, and I have no reason to believe he won't, everything indicates that he's going to continue on. He seems to be right in the sweet spot. That'll be the second longest tenure of any Notre Dame coach once he gets to next year. So it's pretty remarkable the way things have played out over the course of the last century of Notre Dame football. But Kelly's own circumstance at Notre Dame is a story unto itself. So I do think that it's a fascinating look at the modern college football, as well as the history of one of the greatest programs in the sport's history.
The meat grinder of the job too, right? The pressure of the job has, led a lot of coaches to just kind of leave before their time, I guess, right?
Yeah, I think so. And, I hadn't thought about this before, but being an ex-Notre Dame coach is kind of a little bit about if you're a successful ex-Notre Dame coach, it's kind of a little like being the ex-president. I mean, you're not going to starve, right? I mean, you're not going to have to buy many drinks the rest of your life. So I think there's something to that as well. There's some cachet in being the former Notre Dame coach if you were successful. So the pressure to remain isn't as strong either.
It's kind of like being a president, though. Your runs are not very long. It's like you're only allowed to have Ara Parsegian, 10-year run. All right, it's time for you to go, man. We appreciate you, but you got to go. This is kind of how it went. That's kind of funny.
Holtz had about, 8-10 years, right? Didn't he?
Yeah.
You think about it. Those other guys, they all went like that was about as long as they wanted to go with it. But do you know who turned – when Newt Rockne was an assistant at Notre Dame, he applied for another position at another school. Do you know who turned him down?
I do not.
That would be Indiana University.
Now remember, he was young when he took over Notre Dame. Very young.
Oh, I know.
So, funny things happen in sports history. I mean, the John Wooden story, of course, how he almost was the head coach at Minnesota and wound up at UCLA instead. There are lots of those little
Jerry
moments.
Tarkanian. Jerry Tarkanian was recommended to Indiana by John Wooden. Decided not to come back. I mean, there's just all kinds of nutty
who
stories.
They got stuck with, right? That guy. Yeah. Come on, you can't
instead of Tarkanian.
Can't complain about that one.
You get Bob Knight. That's what's so funny. It could have the guy who built his career on not cheating, not doing anything, or they could have had Jerry Tarkanian, the guy who ended up in Las Vegas of all places. Just funny how life works out.
Absolutely.
Mike, appreciate you, brother, as always. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to your next piece coming out and seeing you soon, I guess, at Big Ten Media Days at the very least.
That'll be awesome, guys. Thanks very much. Talk to you next week.
You bet, sir. Have a great one. Mike DeCourcy joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We got plenty more coming up. Back with it right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether you're looking for...
By the way, I don't know that I told you yesterday, but I fixed all the commercials. Now we only have one PSA in rotation.
Awesome.
Park the Shark in Indiana.
Can you imagine that?
That would have been something.
Chewing on that towel.
Stacey Augman and Larry Johnson. And
No.
Greg Anthony. That was an unbelievable team, though.
Grandmama.
Yeah. It's amazing, though, and Gonzaga had the shot this year to do it, to be the undefeated team, and they couldn't do it.
That's how hard it is.
Indiana still stands.
And Indiana did it in the Big Ten.
They did do it with less games on the schedule, for one. I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but...
Well, actually, but last year with COVID...
I don't care how many less they played, they still played tougher games than Gonzaga played.
Actually, last year
That's very true.
Last year with COVID, Gonzaga would have been 32-0. It would have been the same because they played less games last year.
Oh, that's right. You're good point. Good point.
Yeah.
And they would have got to play most of those games without going into opponents' gyms.
With the fans, yeah.
So there's been no official announcement, but I guess the fact that they're selling 6-game tickets leads me to believe that there's definitely going to be fans at Assembly Hall, huh?
Well, why would there not be?
Because of COVID?
Man.
Well, Jim, you had talked about before, I think he's referring to the fact that you thought you knew outdoor seating wouldn't be a problem, but the fact that Assembly
indoor,
Hall is an indoor venue.
The fact that it's an indoor
I think you're gonna have to wear a mask. Doesn't Bloomington require, Monroe County still require that?
Yeah. Yeah, no. Wear your mask, yeah.
So we'll have to wear those stupid masks.
They're not stupid if they protect people.
Do they protect you?
I mean,
You're
I think
mainly
it's
protecting
better.
yourself from the unvaccinated at this point.
Yeah, I think it's better than the alternative. Let's put it that way.
That's not true.
Even if it's not 100%.
Unvaccinated versus vaccinated does not have anything to do with those people can still get and carry the virus. They're just
talking about the
by being
protection aspect of the
vaccinated.
mask.
By being vaccinated, it only prevents you from getting near sick and dying and all that stuff.
Seriously ill, yeah.
Correct. All right, we got 10 seconds.
Andy Moore Honda Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back. It is Tuesday. Kevin Brockway with me. Just finished up with Mike DeCourcy. Looking forward to Big Ten Media Days. I didn't realize it was that quick. That's soon around the corner, man. I've got to send off for credentials.
Yeah, I did. It's just I'm just so grateful that it's in Indy because I have been hearing some rumblings it was going to be in Chicago, and I'm glad it's not because it's
golly, me too.
Much easier drive. The thing is,
I think everyone except for the folks with the Big Ten love it being in Indianapolis.
Yes, of course.
The Big Ten. Why the Big Ten did not base itself in Indianapolis is beyond me. It's where everything else is. The NCAA is there. There's so many athletic associations located there. It's the center of the Big Ten. Why they didn't do that is beyond me. I know it's a bigger city up in Chicago, but that's not that relevant to me.
Yeah, no. I mean, I could see why because there's more sponsorship, business interests up there, so forth, and everything. I could see the argument for Chicago, but it is where it is for a reason. And I think that with the Big Ten being here. The media days being here, it just makes a lot of sense because like football, you can just spread it out at Bankers Life. And, we were talking about COVID earlier, but it's interesting how, those 6-game ticket plans are going out. So it looks like full steam ahead for, full capacity at Assembly Hall, Simon Scott Assembly Hall for basketball.
Yeah, I would imagine. I would imagine. And we're getting closer and closer to that kicking off. Hoosier Hysteria, October 2nd. So we're only, a week away from that?
Yep.
Today's the 21st. A little bit more than that, I guess. But
it should be
10 days.
like I said, certainly very exciting with the new coach, a lot of optimism in how they performed in the Bahamas, a lot of curiosity with a lot of these new players, and new pieces that have been brought in under Mike Woodson. So hope springs eternal, right? That, maybe this could be the year that certainly football's got off to a disappointing start, but maybe basketball makes up for it and has that kind of season that fans have been, hoping for, hankering for the last 4 or 5 years, and get back to the NCAA tournament.
Well, that brings up expectations, man, and fans' expectations. I know the expectations for the football program this year they've had to be altered in my mind. I know that I had 8-4. This team should have been, I was expecting this team to go 8-4 on the football side of things, but that's not going to happen. Team, it's just simply not as good as we thought that they were. Basketball, I don't know. We don't know. That's the thing. It's a big guessing game because we base on what they brought in, the success that they were able to have down in the Bahamas. Don't know what the Big Ten is going to look like completely. We know Michigan's going to be good. Purdue should be good. Ohio State should be all right. Maryland. But we don't know. Simply, we don't know. It reminds me of Roy Kidd. We don't know how they're going to play until they get into game action, till we see them out there playing. So expectations are high, but how high, I don't know. I think Indiana could have a top 4 team easily in the conference, but I've said that over and over, but you got to let them get out. Haven't seen them. Don't know what they really have and what is in this league.
Are they better than Michigan? Are they better than Purdue? Are they better
I don't
than
think that
Illinois? Are they better than Ohio State?
Another team we don't know. Well, what's Illinois going to be like? You know, they've had some loss there. So how are they going to be able to respond?
Player, but they bring back Kofi, and they brought in some transfers, and Curbelo is going to be a year better in the point guard. So, I mean, are they better than those 4 teams? I think that's the question. I see them more in the second tier. They could be at best 5 or 10. Nobody's talking about Rutgers, and they have Harper back, and they have Geo Baker back. With two dynamic guys. Now, they did lose Young, the one guard, to transfer to Oregon, who I think is a big defensive spark plug for them. But I mean, they're a team that under Peichel has, would have been 2 years in a row in the NCAA tournament, made the NCAA tournament last year, gave Houston all they could handle. They were a Final Four team.
Absolutely. Hey, what was last week? Your Canes, man. Michigan State. All right, let's talk about a football team. Michigan State. They're looking pretty damn good. They go down to Miami and South Beach, and they win handily, 38-17. I thought that was an opportunity for Michigan State or Miami to get themselves a nice win, because Michigan State was going to have to come down out of the nice, cool Michigan weather into that South Beach heat, and it didn't affect them. Man, they thumped Miami.
I remember watching the Northwestern game, I think in my hotel room that Friday night, and saying, this is a different Michigan State team. Even week 1, you could see it. You could see that kid Walker, the running back, is very good. And at the quarterback position, Peyton Thorne has turned out to be so much better than Rocky Lombardi last year, who was turnover waiting to happen. And that, if you remember last year, that Indiana-Michigan State game, Lombardi threw like 3 or 4 picks. And, and that this is what Penix is going through this year. It's just so hard to win when you turn the ball over. At the rate, certainly, that Indiana is 7 turnovers in 3 games, and the 7 being in those 2 games. So that's the thing. You take care of the football. Peyton Thorne, I don't think, has thrown an interception all season, 3 games. And that's made a huge difference for Michigan State. And Mel Tucker, coming from Georgia and Colorado, reputation for recruiter. He's a good defensive mind, too. He'd be the early candidate right now for Big Ten Coach of the Year.
Iowa took care of Kent State, number 5 Iowa, I should say. Of course, Indiana losing to number 8 Cincinnati. Did Cincinnati look like a top 10 team to you?
No, they did not. But I think that, I think the one thing was it, and you were talking about expectations before. I was thinking that it would have been successful for Indiana to win 2 of the first 3. They could have dropped the one to Iowa, which they did. They could have dropped Cincinnati, but losing both of them, I think, really hurts them and really puts them in a bind right now. But Cincinnati, the other thing, too, in that game, you had a great crowd. You had an unbelievable crowd. I mean, it was sold out.
Which is an unbelievable opportunity.
Yeah.
And to not do it against that team is bothersome, because they should have beat them. Now, losing to Iowa, like I said, Iowa was just better prepared, better coached. They were just better.
Yeah.
Cincinnati's not. They weren't. They're not a top 10 team, and they should have lost by 2 touchdowns easily.
They're a top 25 team, I think. But I think too with Cincinnati was the fact that it was very similar. Their game against Indiana played out very similar to their game the previous week against Murray State, where they were slow starting, and they figured it out in the second half, and they did the same thing with Indiana. Of course, losing Micah McFadden, and then also. Indiana should have been out to a bigger lead. Should have been better than 14-0. Could have been 20-0, 24-0. You could have really buried them there in the first half with the way the team was dominating defensively, to the point where even with McFadden's ejection, you could have held on in the second half if Cincinnati made a run, and it didn't happen because didn't take advantage of the opportunities in the red zone. 3 of 6. Cincinnati was 5 of 5, and the turnovers had a lot to do with that.
Northwestern, not good. They lose at Duke, who had just lost to Charlotte the week before that. Rutgers beats Delaware. Minnesota goes to Colorado and wins 30-0. That's a nice win, and someone Indiana's got to look out for because it's on their schedule. Michigan destroyed Northern Illinois 63-10, so Michigan's looking good. I talked about Michigan State. Notre Dame, I thought Purdue was going to be able to handle this, but they didn't. They lose to number 12, the Irish, 27-13.
See that
but
shot
the game,
that David Bell took?
I didn't see it, but I heard about it. That he really got his bell rung. No pun intended.
No pun intended, but he was. Yeah, that was really scary. But I guess he's up and okay now. But Jeff Brom, only 13 points, right? Offensive mastermind, but sometimes it's about personnel, and Notre Dame played a pretty good defensive game.
They're not off to the start they want again either. But the game of the night in the Big Ten, of course, Penn State, number 10 Penn State, handling number 22 Auburn from the SEC, 28-20. What a game that was. Sean Clifford, 280 yards, Bigsby with 102 rushing yards, and Dotson with 78 yards through the air.
Who's the best team in the Big Ten right now? Is it Penn State?
Iowa.
Well, you can make the argument that Penn State's had better wins.
Well, you just asked me who the better team was. That's just my opinion. I've seen Iowa play. I know they're playing mistake-free ball.
Yeah.
Penn State barely wins at home with that crowd. I just think that Iowa is playing mistake-free ball. They're not a better team, but they're better just because of not making the mistakes. I think that they're going to be a solid team, and you're going to have to – you can't flinch against Iowa. You make a mistake, and they're going to capitalize on it.
Is this the year Indiana could beat Ohio State?
Well, it would have been if they have an offense. But right now, I don't know who they can beat. I don't know that they can beat enough teams to become bowl eligible because I don't know that they can beat Michigan State. I don't know that they can beat Penn State. I don't think that they can beat Penn State. They've got to come up with an offense, or they're not going to beat State. Doesn't matter.
What if these struggles are more the fact that they played two pretty tough defensive teams in Iowa and Cincinnati, and maybe with
Iowa, I go with that with Iowa, but Cincinnati, no. All those were self-inflicted wounds against Cincinnati. Self-inflicted. Those interceptions were not. That was not something Cincinnati did.
The fumble was a good. If you look at the replay, the fumble was a good defensive play. It was
good hit. It was a good hit, but you don't fumble the ball at the 2.
Yeah.
Good teams just don't do that. Yep. You don't run a 4th and 1 play and the only time you put your quarterback under center. They know what's going to happen. You don't make those bad mistakes, and Indiana makes bad mistakes.
Or if you do that, why not bring in the 260-pound kid, McCulley, just on a gadget play?
Anything. Anything. You got to do something different. But there you go. Hey, we got to take a break. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans.
Should have Chronic joining next.
All right.
But we'll see.
Man, is Urban Meyer going to make it through the season?
Well, what happened in week 2? I didn't see this.
He just sucks.
Yeah, but did he do something that pissed the players off too? He might go to USC. That'd be smart if he did. Urban. What about the Colts too, huh? 0-2?
Yeah.
What do you think's wrong with them?
Quarterback, offensive line.
I know. They were supposed to be a great offensive line.
So was Indiana. All those returners.
They missed Kreider. Kreider was good.
Yep.
Kreider should not have left.
I don't
unless he
understand
graduated.
that.
Did he graduate or did he go to the NFL?
I don't know. He might be on a practice squad somewhere, but I agree. He should have stuck around.
Really, none of the players should have left, honestly, other than Jamar Johnson.
Yeah. Well, Stevie Scott left because Matt Hart left.
That makes sense. And honestly, that's better for him anyway, because I don't know what they would have brought in Stephen Carr had they still had Stevie Scott, but if they had, Carr would have probably overtaken him anyway.
I'm shocked actually that Stevie Scott didn't go to Michigan. That's what I thought he would have done.
I am too.
Yeah.
They have a good running game attack anyway without him.
Yeah, they do. Well, they lost Charbonnet to UCLA.
And he's done pretty good out there. Speaking of UCLA,
Fresno State, how about Kalen DeBoer?
Yeah, there we go. That's what I was just saying. Kalen DeBoer. And I don't know if you know this, Kane Womack is 3-0 down with South Alabama right now.
Oh, geez.
So the Tom Allen coaching tree looking pretty good. All right, we got 15 seconds.
Long list of craft beers and all of the right foods to go with. Plan a day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink. This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back on this Tuesday. Kevin Brockway with us from CNHI Papers. Make sure you give him a follow at Kevin Brockway G1 on Twitter. Do the same for me, please, at Jim Coyle ISB. Make sure you follow us on YouTube, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Hey, some little notes. Fresno State, Kalen DeBoer, last year's offensive coordinator for Indiana. He's the head coach of Fresno State. Over the weekend, upsets UCLA. I think that they're 2-1 right now with a loss to Oregon, in which they covered the spread in that game. So, pretty good start for Kalen DeBoer. And that's what you've lost at offense for Indiana, folks. Yeah. To me, I think that is a huge difference. Kalen DeBoer is not – there is a big difference between Kalen DeBoer and Nick Sheridan. And I'm not harping on Nick, but if you don't think there's a difference, you're just simply wrong. There is. He was a very experienced offensive mind when he got here. He was a very successful mind when he got here. And now you can see the success. You don't go and do the things that he's doing without knowing what you're doing. How about Kane Womack down in South Alabama? His first head coaching foray. They're 3-0. That's what Indiana's lost a little. They've lost 2 back-to-back coordinators that are currently 5-1 at their respective schools.
Pretty good, no question. And remember I asked Charlton Wardner about adjusting the scheme with McFadden, and he didn't seem to be, big on adjustments. He just is, these are the guys I'm going with. This is how we're going to play, and this is how we're going to play. And that's how, that's what they did. And Thomas Allen played in the second half, and I love Thomas to death, but he's coming off hip surgery, and that you could see in some of those open field situations, it was a lot different having him out there compared to Micah McFadden, who's a lot shiftier of a linebacker. So,
yeah, it makes a difference. But you'll have him back this week. But you cannot let one player change the thing like it changed last week for Indiana. There was a gigantic shift on their defensive side, without question. But that can't be the case.
Yeah, you would say that. I'm preseason All-American. I mean, he's pretty good, but you've got to find a way to compensate. And they were down Devin Matthews too, obviously on the defense, is an all Big Ten guy. And Tywan Mullen, that's the other thing too, right?
He got beat, straight up beat on a touchdown.
5'10", and
versus 6'3".
Versus a 6'3" guy. And that was the go-ahead touchdown. Teams are going to pick on him there. It's one of those things. It's interesting how momentum works in football, and the flaws get exposed, and you're on this kind of magic carpet ride last year, which Indiana was, and this year, now you're facing some adversity. You're kind of getting hit in the mouth early in the season, and we'll see kind of how they respond from this. But I would say two really positives, because transfers, as you know, are hit and miss. I've always felt this way in all sports. You probably hit on 50% of them. The two transfers that have been really nice and really impactful for Indiana so far, Ryder Anderson on defense and DJ Matthews on offense. Two guys.
Without question.
Yeah, those are the two guys that have really kind of stepped up and stepped into their roles and done a good job. Yeah. We just haven't seen much from Stephen Carr yet. He did have the one good game against, Idaho, but it's Idaho. I mean, what has he done in the two games that have been of note? Really, he's probably averaged about 2.5 yards per carry. That needs to pick up for sure in the run game for them to have any kind of success going into big time play. But some of that might be on the offensive line too.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, because you've had a host of different running backs that have come through here, and since Jordan Howard, I don't think that any of them have really had success as far as being that guy that could average 4 yards a carry and get you that yard when you need it.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing too. It's kind of that kind of that kind of a situation too, where I don't necessarily fault. As some people were questioning why Baldwin was in that goal line situation to begin with instead of Stephen Carr. But Stephen Carr had run in the last series and not done much. And Dylan McCullough said he was going to use different guys in different series. And that was Tim Baldwin's series to finish off. He just didn't execute the play.
Yeah, I mean, think of the differences that if Indiana scores on that play as opposed to fumbling the ball. There are just so many, we talked about, there's just so many little things that completely change that game. And Indiana, they're making those mistakes this far into the season, mistakes that they didn't make last year. And with the heightened awareness of this season, to see them making these mistakes, it really, it's a head scratcher. Tom Allen is a guy who's about details and all of that, but that's what they're missing right now. The details. They're not crossing the T's and dotting the I's on everything. And those simple little things cost them the game against Cincinnati. They didn't look good against Idaho, if you want to be honest, offensively. So you've got one last shot against a Western Kentucky team that, quite frankly, I don't think they're going to make it that easy on you, because they're going to be challenging this defense all over the place. And the defense can probably hold them, but they're probably going to wear them out with all the different schemes they're going to be throwing at them. And I don't know what Western's defense is like. It can't be that good, I wouldn't imagine, but neither has been Indiana's offense. So it's going to be interesting.
Indiana, I think in that game, in that environment, Indiana's going to have to score with them, and they're going to have to find ways to make plays, or they're going to have to, they might have to score by turning them over, or they might have to score in special teams, things like that too, like they did against Idaho. It might not be, it's not going to be a walk in the park for sure, but I think this is a game where Indiana's going to have to put up points any way they can, certainly, and maybe some of that comes from offense. Maybe you get a pick six, or you get a few turnovers of your own. Don't forget that Indiana, their 2 touchdowns were in the first half were off turnovers. They were short fields.
Ross throws up and said he can't get over the first down play calls from Sheridan. 21 of 32 have been runs for 2.7 yards per carry. That's not devastating to get started, but it's under 3 yards, so it's not the start that you want. So you're kind of under the gun. Indiana is not a good first down team. And I'll have to pull up the stats to see how good of a third down team they've been, but I don't know that they've been that good on third downs.
Yeah.
And you're playing a team that is number 1 in the country on third downs, by the way, in Western, and they have the nation's best passing attack.
Yeah. Let's see. Third down conversions here. Third down, Cincinnati was 4 of 14. Indiana was 6 of 16 in that game. So not terrible, but not great.
Well, I bet if you had the Iowa stats to that, it's not very good.
Yeah. Fourth down, Indiana 1 of 3. You know, obviously they got stuffed early in the game. Cincinnati 1 of 1 on fourth down. But here was the game. The game was this, and you know the turnovers impacted this also. But Cincinnati 5 of 5 in the red zone. Indiana 3 of 6.
Well, that was the name. That was the entire ball game right there. Yeah, we've talked about that, and you know, it's just inexcusable. You can't come up empty against a team like that.
Yeah,
you just can't, and that's why that 4th and 1 play. Horrible. I think it's horrible because you have to consider every single play the lifeblood of what you're doing, and that was just I think it was a horrible call. Now, if it works, there's no talk about it. But that's not. You probably could have given me a list of 10 plays, and that probably would have been the last one I called.
Yeah. I think too, you know, it's interesting. I was thinking back last year to that game against Michigan State, where Indiana's defense was completely dominant. They pitched a shutout, but they had a lot of red zone problems in that game. And 24-0, they could have really blown them out of the water. And I remember they kept on screwing up on fourth down, and Tom wouldn't go for field goals.
I think because they don't run red zone plays in games, that they run red zone plays in practice. I think they're way more comfortable in you know, Penix does not get under center. He got under center one time, and that was for the 4th and 1 play that was unsuccessful. I think that when they actually get into the red zone, they don't always call the plays that they run in practice. I think that there may be, I'm not going to use the word panic, but confidence is lacking in confidence to make the calls, calmness, but it's not getting done.
Yeah,
unfortunately, and they've got to change some things.
Well, what, you know, and that's the telling thing too, that the turnover issue was in practice too. It's not just in the games, and it's something that they've been really trying to clean up since August. The fact that they've been inefficient and turning the ball over and so forth. That this is not. And the first 2 weeks of camp, to me, I remember there was one last day of camp where they looked a little sloppy, but for most of camp, they looked pretty in tune, even in the 7-on-7 and the 11-on-11 drills. To me, they looked good. And if you remember, the first scrimmage, they said that the offense looked great, but the second scrimmage, when the defense took over, I think that was kind of a telling sign into the season that it was really the defense doing better and the offense really struggling. And Sheridan had mentioned short yardage too, which has been an issue.
Yeah, well, it's not going to get any easier as the Big Ten season starts to pick up. That's, you know, Indiana's had these few games to kind of work some things out, and I don't know that we've seen them work a lot of things out offensively. That's one of the issues. Yeah. They haven't looked more better.
Yeah, and it's shaping up to be a pretty top-heavy Big Ten schedule, in the fact that you've got Michigan State, which looks much improved, Ohio State, Penn State. You know, those 3 games all back to back to back. And then on the back end in November, you've got, you know, Minnesota, who's playing decently. You've got Rutgers, you've got Purdue. But who's to say that your confidence isn't shot by November, or your team isn't beat up where you're going to win those games? That's the thing. And football is such a momentum game. And it's also like, you know, do you fold up and quit when your goals die? You know what I mean? When, you know, there's no longer a shot for a Big Ten championship, or do you still play hard? Do guys that have NFL draft aspirations lay up in November? I've seen that happen with a lot of Miami teams over the years, where they just fold up shop. You know what I mean? When their goals aren't met, when they lose to Florida State in October, or to Clemson, and that's it. So that will be very telling, and that'll be telling of the whole LEO mindset also. And do you finish strong, you know, and give maximum effort, you know, in November if things don't go well in October.
Yeah, because now you start to you look at the schedule, and you start to count wins for bowl eligibility. this season has gotten dramatically more difficult all of a sudden for Indiana. This week, of course, we know they have their last non-conference game, but once Big Ten play starts, you see, what is the first game? Penn State?
Yeah.
At Penn State? Man, that's a welcome. That's a howdy-do welcome. You've gone to Iowa, and now you're going to go to Penn State. That'll sure wake you up in the morning for breakfast. You've got a game against a vastly improved Michigan State team. Although it's at home, they're good. They're playing really, really good football. They've shown they can go on the road and win, as they did in South Beach, in Miami. You've got to go to Michigan, who looks to be vastly improved. You've got to play a Maryland team that seems to be improved. Rutgers is improving. Those are two games that, okay, let's count on those for 2 wins.
Yeah.
You've got to go to Purdue. You've got a Minnesota team that's going to come here that's playing a lot better football. Where are these 6 wins going to come from?
Yeah. One thing I'll say about Michigan is they haven't really played anyone yet. They've had a very soft early schedule.
I get that, but they're scoring, but they're beating the team 60 to whatever. When you're, that means you're not making a ton of mistakes.
Yeah. I mean, Indiana put up 56 on Idaho, so they scored when they faced their one soft opponent. It wasn't like they barely squeaked by. So there's something to be said for that. And you're up 14-0 on Cincinnati with 5 minutes to go in the second quarter. So I think there are signs that this can be still a pretty good team. It's just a matter of putting it all together and not making the mistakes, and just playing crisper football. That's kind of the key. You know what I mean? You can't. This team doesn't. This team is more talented, but you still don't have the margin of error on this team to make the mistakes that you're making, and winning week in and week out. I mean, even last year they had some sloppy games, but they might have seemed to have a little more talent to overcome that as opposed to this year.
Yep, absolutely. I think it's time to take a break. We'll do that and be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by the fine folks at Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Go to andymorehonda.com, order your Honda, and have it ready and waiting for you. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether you're looking for
So no Chronic this week?
Yeah, sometimes he gets caught up in meetings, I think. So it's hit or miss with him.
Chronic. What time is it? 10:20.
Yeah. Oh, also, Jim, that reminds me. Did Dustin text you yet about Thursday for this week for him?
No, but let's talk about that after.
Okay, we can. I just didn't know if he did.
Are you going to go to Western Kentucky or no?
I think so. Are you're going, right?
Yeah, I found out yesterday that I'm going. good.
Yeah, I'll go down.
The Mighty Hilltoppers.
Big Red. The Blob. All right, coming back in.
It's got you covered. They're Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. For deals like this, how about a new 2020 Honda Civic LX front-wheel drive lease for just $180 a month, or a new 2021 Honda Accord LX front-wheel drive lease for just $270 a month. Andy Moore Honda Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Yogi's Bar and Grill. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio's Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you on this Tuesday. Jim Coyle with you, as always. Kevin Brockway, CNHI Papers as well. Western Kentucky up on the docket this week for Indiana football. They have started their season thus far with wins against Tennessee Martin, 59-21. They lose to Army, 38-35.
Beautiful Michie Stadium in West Point. Have you ever been there?
I have not.
I went there once with the Cub Scouts because I grew up in Suffern in Rockland County, which wasn't far from West Point, when I was like 8 or 9 years old. I mean, it's an unbelievable experience to go to an Army football game.
I would imagine that it is.
Cadets and everything, and the marching and the whole night. And that's a beautiful campus. West Point overlooks the Hudson River. I mean, it's amazing. And it's amazing the discipline that those players, have to go through to attend that school.
Do you know who Western Kentucky plays the week after Indiana?
Michigan State.
Michigan State.
Yep.
Pretty bold scheduling. By Western.
No, I mean, it's you test yourselves against these good teams, and you hope it shows up in playing in your conference. I would think, right?
Yeah, it certainly should. I mean, that Army, while that might have been a conference game, but that's a challenging foe.
One of the reasons why I thought Indiana would have success against Cincinnati, and it bore out early too, is there's something to be said for Cincinnati's first two opponents were both kind of walkthroughs, whereas Indiana had that Iowa game where they were game tested. And I thought that showed early in the game that, Indiana was playing a team, for the second time of that level, where Cincinnati was playing a team the first time of Indiana's level. And it took a while for Cincinnati to adjust, and they eventually did, and they overtook Indiana in the second half. But I thought that was going to play more of a factor. But Indiana did not learn from their first game in Iowa in terms of the sloppiness, unfortunately, and that came back to bite them.
Yes, it certainly did. And that's the thing about football versus basketball. You've got to wait a week. And not only do you have to wait a week, that game is that's like 4 or 5 basketball games. It carries the importance of that. Yeah. It's like losing 4 in a row when you lose a football game. And you've got to bounce back from that. It's difficult.
You only get so many opportunities. I think that's the thing. And, but the one thing is that, the Big Ten schedule is still ahead of you, and you get on a roll, and you never know what can happen. Certainly Indiana got on a roll in Big Ten play last year. I mean, they've already dropped 1 Big Ten game, but they still have a bunch of Big Ten games, 8 Big Ten games remaining. But this is the week to kind of get right to go into the Big Ten schedule and take a little positive momentum into the teeth or the bulk of the Big Ten schedule starting in October.
Yep, looking forward to that as that comes along.
Russ mentioned the Rutgers thing. I saw that. Yeah, apparently a paintball incident.
What?
They were arrested for shooting off paintball guns or something. The 2 Rutgers DBs. It sounds like a Rutgers thing to do.
What were they doing? Ain't nothing bad.
Rutgers suspends DBs Max Melton and Chris Long after they were taken into custody because of a paintball gun incident. So you ever play paintball?
One time, and I loved it.
You did? So
it was great.
Yeah, but you want to know what? You get shot by those paint. That hurts, man. That leaves like a welt. Get hit by those paintball bullets.
Well, especially if you're close. But
yeah,
I remember playing once with a guy who he was damn near a sniper. I mean, he was up in this perch, and daggone it, was trying to.
With a paintball.
I'm telling you, I was trying to peek around a corner. It's like, damn. It was, he was pretty damn accurate with that thing. I'll tell you that. I was like, wow. Yep. It was certainly fun. I'd like to do it again. It was a unique deal that you don't get to do it unless you do it all the time. But I wonder that kind of was one of those things that got hugely popular for a little bit, and then I bet people still play it, paintball, right?
I think they do, yeah, and I think they do it. I think some people do it outside now too. They do like a little like in the woods or whatever, and
Yeah, you don't want to be carrying those on the street. Obviously, I mean, looks like a gun, so
paintball guns in the dark can get you killed.
Well, if you're out in the street and you get a paintball gun, they don't know it looks like a regular gun. But Ross suggesting Rafferty's and Roosters. Roosters is just like a chicken wing joint down there.
Yeah, no, they have a Roosters in Columbus, Ohio.
Wait a minute. Yeah, wait a minute. Those are just chains, man. You can't recommend a chain. Come on, Ross. There's a place in Bowling Green that is, oh man. It's
Steamer
like
Seafood is a place down in Bowling Green.
No, it's a wing place down there, like Roosters, but
better.
Oh my gosh, come on. College restaurants in Bowling.
There's Double Dogs. Is that what you're thinking of?
You should know. You went to school there.
That's what I'm saying. But here's the thing:
Double Dogs hit it yet. That is not it. There was one that's like a wings place.
And Steamers is closed now, actually, now that I think about it. But that was a good seafood restaurant.
Steamers.
Okay. I hope I find it, and I'm going to embarrass you.
I'm not doing seafood in Kentucky, by the way. I went to a place. I think I went to a place in Lexington once, and I had shrimp scampi, and I had the worst food poisoning the next day. I'm flying back from Louisville. I had like literally brown bag.
I think this place must have closed. It was like a sports bar.
Mr. B's. I guarantee you that's what you're thinking of. Mr. B's Pizza and Wings.
Okay.
That is a good place, though. I've only been a couple of times, but it is good.
Probably.
My favorite pizza place in Louisville is a place called Wick's on Bardstown Road. That's really good.
Yeah. But if I'm close to Southern Indiana, I have to have an Arnie's, so.
Okay.
But Wick's pizza is pretty good. But I'm not thin crust, man. I got this thin crust. I'm not into the thick dough. I don't want all that dough. If I wanted all that dough, I would just put some spaghetti sauce on some biscuits.
Yeah.
Every day.
What's your all's opinion on Pizza King in Southern Indiana?
Fake knockoff, man.
Really? I've heard the stories about how. Okay, I've heard those stories before, but I didn't realize that until not too long ago. Actually,
well, I don't know that that's the truth. When did they come into existence?
Well, so Pizza King supposedly was some sort of they took the name of somebody else because they didn't get their name copyrighted or whatever the process is for that, and they ended up taking their recipe and doing something with it. I don't know if that has anything to do with Arnie's, but there's some sort of weird, shady story with the Pizza King chain down there in Southern Indiana. But I love Pizza King; it's probably my favorite.
Well, it's very similar to Arnie's, I think. We don't have Arnie's here around the Bloomington area. You can get them all over Indiana, but not in Bloomington because it originated in Lafayette. So I don't think they'll let anyone. I don't think
actually. Now that you say Lafayette, that does sound familiar. So that might be what the situation is.
I don't think they won't let them. I don't think that they allow an Arnie's in Bloomington, which is kind of funny. But I'm an Arnie's guy, man. I grew up eating Arnie's pizza when I was a kid. I gotta say,
delish.
You've never had an Arnie's, I'm sure. I'm assuming.
No, I've not. But sounds like it would be a good pizza.
It is straight up thin crust. Yeah, it's not about the crust. It's like cracker crust, which is what a pizza should be. That's all a pizza should be. The crust is just to hold up the stuff. Just hold up the marinara and the cheese and the sausage and the pepperoni and the mushroom and the onions and the banana peppers.
Well,
That's
like
its own job.
the New
And
York
the spicy
style,
meatballs.
yeah, the New York style pizza used to be able to fold it. You have big slice and you can fold the slice. I mean, you had like really strong crust. Yeah, I wouldn't say it was thick crust, but it was a good crust. Yeah.
Wait a minute. Mike says Pizza King has the best stores in Evansville. So they're down there. Ellisville Pizza Pantry. Okay, I was trying to read that. Scott says the closest thing to Pizza King or Arnie's in the B-Town. There's not a Pizza King around here? I didn't know that. But Pizza Pantry in Ellisville, apparently, which is just outside of Bloomington on the northwest side. But I'm gonna have to check that out. I had not heard of that. The Pizza Pantry, Ellisville. I'm gonna check that out. Yeah. I did not know that. Tim says Pizza King uses a different crust than Arnie's, and Arnie's uses old ovens for flavoring. Yeah, now we're getting on to some conversation. Now, Pizza King does have a good stromboli. I'm going to go with that. I remember growing up eating those strombolis, but the barbecue stromboli at Nick's is pretty damn good.
Yeah, the stromboli
pretty good.
Yeah,
never had a barbecue. That was my first barbecue stromboli. That's pretty good.
Strombolis are to die for. Yeah.
Ross says he can't remember the name, but there's an excellent mom and pop barbecue joint. Well, that doesn't help us out, Ross, if you can't remember the name of it. Daggone it. We're talking food, man.
I know.
Taterology says if you like thin crust, try Z Place if you're ever in Huntington, Indiana. See, I love finding out where these great pizza places are because there's some great pizza places out there.
Yeah.
But you got to know where they are, man.
Yeah.
You got to know where they are.
Yeah.
And then now, what now, Scott? Now he says that he's pretty sure the Ellisville Pizza Pantry closed a couple years ago after 30 plus years. Well, damn, you got me jacked up.
What a buzzkill.
Pete says Arnie's barbecue pizza or sandwich is great. I have not had that. Nick's original Strom, the best he's ever had for Forrest. Yeah. Their Stroms are pretty good, man. Damn. Scott, man, I'm all jacked up for some pizza now. Thin crust pizza.
Well, we had pizza for lunch yesterday, which was nice. Yeah.
Where's the best? Yeah, it's not thin crust. They never get thin crust.
Yeah.
Yeah. After the multitude of press conferences we go through on Mondays, which are a lot. I mean, we're there for a couple hours. They will usually bring in pizza or whatnot from
Bucchettos.
Yeah, but they never get thin crust.
You know what I mean? It's free, man.
I get it, but I'm like, it's a lot of dough, man. A lot of dough. It's a lot of dough. Mike said that the annual Evansville Westside Fall Fest is the first full week in October, second largest street festival in the United States. Hold on. Wow.
That's nice.
Every kind of fried food imaginable. That sounds like a state fair and a heart attack waiting to happen.
Artery clogging, yeah.
But let me say that again, though, for folks that are. The annual Evansville Westside Fall Festival is the first full week in October, so that's coming up very soon. It is the second largest street festival in the United States. Wow, that's amazing for a town the size of Evansville, man.
You should go down there one day, yeah.
Well, if I had an 8th day out of the week, I would. They're kind of all occupied at the moment.
That they are.
With work.
Hey, I pulled this up. This is interesting about the Indiana-Syracuse game. Mike Waters, the fine beat writer for the Syracuse Post-Standard, Syracuse could field the starting lineup with over 200 career starts. Buddy Boeheim, 62. Joe Girard, 58. Barama Sidibe, 33. Jimmy Boeheim, 38 at Cornell. And Cole Swider, 17 at Villanova.
I saw that. I saw your post. And did you follow that up with how many Indiana would potentially be starting? Because it's going to be substantially less than that, I think.
Well, Trace and Race, though, are 2-year starters, and Finney's a 2-year starter. So you might have like
Finney's not going to start. Finney's not going to start.
But if Finney doesn't start, yeah. But then Xavier Johnson, how many games did he start at Pittsburgh?
Yeah, but the difference is they've been in the same system.
Parker Stewart. Well, if you look at Mike Waters, I mean, Jimmy Boeheim and Cole Swider, those are 2 transfers from Villanova and Cornell, so they're not in the same system.
You can't count Boeheim as a transfer. I know he is, but gee whiz.
Jimmy
you think
Boeheim?
He knows that system more than anybody else.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. But that's interesting. But just, to your point that they're going to be facing a fairly experienced team in the Carrier Dome in that ACC Big Ten Challenge game, which should be a fun contest in the beautiful Carrier Dome in Syracuse, New York.
And they'll get 30,000 people for that game.
They usually do. I don't know what their attendance, but when I went up there, I saw Florida play there. They had a 30K in there, and it's loud. Yeah, it's a good atmosphere. Carmelo Anthony was there. I remember at the game that year, and it was a lot of fun. They serve beer there.
Tony says that Evansville Fall Festival also includes brain sandwiches. What the hell is a brain sandwich?
Oh, man.
What the hell's a brain sandwich?
Like
Am I missing something? I hope to. Yeah. What is that?
Sandwich. Oh my god!
Yeah, I got it for you. Here we go. I got it for you. In the Midwest, a fried brain sandwich is typically
I don't want to see it.
You don't have to see it. I'll just explain what it is. It's typically a fried brain patty on a bun, topped with mustard, pickles, and raw onion.
Stop! Brain of what?
It just says brain. I don't know if it's anything specific, but
the human.
What is this? Silence of the Lambs?
Here we go. Generally served as sliced calves' brains on sliced bread.
Oh my good Lord!
Oh, and the poor calf too. That's a young.
Well,
Let's take a break on that note.
Wow. Yeah, I've got Silence of the Lambs on the brains now. Ray Liotta. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you from the golf club at Eagle Point Studios. Right after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans. Woo.
Man, have we gone down a rabbit hole today?
That's okay. That makes it fun.
Oh, yeah. It's funny. Brain sandwiches. I can't believe I can believe I've never heard of it, but I can't believe that it exists. I wonder where it originated from. I'm trying to look. In Evansville, Indiana, they are still offered at several mom and pop eateries and remain a favorite dish. Wasn't he talking about Evansville for that?
I could think so.
But they're popular primarily in St. Louis. So, enough about that, I guess.
Yep.
All right, gonna bring us back.
You've always been there for me. You helped me count pennies from my piggy bank. You helped me pick out my first car. And helped me buy my dream home. And I know you'll continue to be there for whatever my future holds. Because you're my BFF. Banking friends forever.
Right now, get free checking with online banking and all the products of big city banks with hometown service.
With First Federal, you can do that.
This segment is brought to you by Aurora Specialty Sleep Clinic. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back on this Tuesday. Hope you're having a good start to the week, Kevin.
By the way,
Brockway
I watched Peyton and Eli last night, and it was
oh
tremendous.
yeah, I did too. All right, so who was funniest? Which was that needs we need to start making this a regular segment. Who was the funniest guest? Gronk seemed to be half paying attention to what was going on. He wasn't paying attention to the game at all, and like he could half hear what Peyton and them are saying. And Peyton tries to stay, Peyton's watching the game at the same time, and he's throwing some zingers out at the same time. So he's used to being a quarterback and throwing multiple things out. And Gronk is just Gronk.
Yeah, I watched the second half, so I saw Brett Favre. I saw I think Patrick Willis, and McAfee at the end was pretty hysterical doing that punt call. He was really good.
McAfee's always good.
Yeah, he was very
I think I fell asleep when he came on about that time, but man, McAfee's the greatest. But I got to tell you, I like the Peyton. He cracks me up because he was getting those guys on and they're sitting there crackling each other, and it's guys that are playing the games.
Yeah, and it's really good. I mean, it's really insightful about how quarterbacks think, how offensive thinks, how they break down the opposing coverages, and they say, well, why were they playing this coverage when, you were playing, like, I guess they said they were playing too high the whole time, and then the third down with Devontae Adams. It's like, why are they playing single coverage with Devontae Adams when they work so hard to get in that 3rd and 16,
Oh, man, yeah. The guys are still on the brain stuff over here. But yeah, I think that could become a better watch segment or way of doing the game than
the traditional way of doing it.
Yes. It would be interesting to see. They're not going to beat the network numbers, I wouldn't think. It would take a while, but if they could.
It's just a conversational way of doing it, and it's a different, it's different. It's unique,
Very different. I think if they had a little bit better connection, like Gronk is obviously not connected. Their setups weren't as good as Peyton and Eli. They're obviously they have earphones in so they can hear quicker, and the guests seem like they're just hooked up on a laptop. Man, they're just going through the regular like any Joe Schmo at home, and but it's definitely funny and entertaining. I would like to see him get someone like David Letterman on. Now that would be funny. Did you see the Peyton Manning, David Letterman, Peyton's Places?
The Peyton's Places where he throws the ball. Yeah.
Well, they start off with talking about the beard, how you're handling retirement. And they both got the beard on. Then they go in, they're at Ball State, and David Letterman has got the ways to change football to make it more exciting One of them was every time a team scores, you raise the goalpost. And they had it on this thing. They kept raising the goalpost. And they raised it like 10 stories in the air at one point. Guys, they kick in an extra point, and the goalpost has been raised 10 stories in the air. They're just funny stuff, man.
Good stuff for sure. But it was a very entertaining watch last night. And of course, the game, Aaron Rodgers got right, and the Packers beat up on the Lions. After the Lions played pretty tough in the first half.
Scott's taking us all over the place this morning. He's just dragging our minds everywhere. He's taking us up and down. Now we're back up with the potential. The pizza pantry in Ellisville actually appears to be open, he says now. Awesome barbecue Stroms and some regular Stroms, but the pizza is pretty similar to Pizza King, located on Highway 46 across from the liquor store. Like they only got one liquor store there, Scott. I've been through Ellisville. I promise you they got more than one liquor store there. I'm just kidding. But I'm going to have to check that out. That's my good friend's Neil Tires over there. That's where I get all my tires taken care of. But that's good to know. Yeah. I'm going to have to check that out. Pizza Pantry. All right. I love that. Of course, our good friends at Pizza X. I got some coupons to give away from Pizza X. Have to get them to some peeps. Maybe have to do that for the next home football game.
Yeah, do a little contest.
Pizza X coupons right here.
Yeah.
Pizza X also good pizza. Their thin crust is good.
Yeah.
I'm just a thin crust guy.
I remember when I first moved to Bloomington, I had a bunch of pizza coupons, and that was one of them was Pizza X. Yeah.
I just don't get the Mike likes Tironi's Pizza down in Evansville. So for all of you listening on the ref down there on ESPN 97.7 to us, that's a couple of pizza mentions there. We need a pizza sponsor from Evansville, so find us a pizza sponsor. There you go. Someone who is sports friendly. But I just pizza is one of those things you grow up on, man. But I have not been to Italy. So therefore I have not had pizza in Italy. I don't know what pizza is actually like in Italy. I'm going to imagine it's a little bit different than how America's usually bastardizes, whether it's pizza or Mexican food.
Apparently the people have traveled there. It's a lot of thin crust. It's almost like
that's how it should be.
A cracker, almost like a cracker, like a wafer kind of crust. Like it's a very, yeah.
Ooh, this sounds good. How about Speakeasy Pizza in Orleans, south of us?
All right.
Is the best. Thin fire pizza? Come on, man. That's almost drivable.
Yeah.
All right, y'all need to start sending me these. I know you did on here, but I need to get them in some kind of order. And I'm going to visit these places. That would be something to talk about.
All right.
Yeah, we'll maybe do a show there or something.
You'd be like Barstool and go to a different pizza place every week.
Just here, though. We're just doing it here.
I don't mean across the U.S., obviously.
And we should do that on the road. We'll go to these road games, Kevin.
Yeah.
Where was that pizza place? All right. Whoever's the pizza place in Bowling Green, we got to have that sent to us. We're going to go check. We're going to start checking out the pizza places.
Mr. B's Pizza and Wings down in Bowling Green.
Now, is that a pizza place, though, or is that a wing place that sells pizza?
No, it's literally marketed as Mr. B's Pizza and Wings.
I understand that, but what I'm asking, I don't care what they market it as.
Well, maybe you should go try it. I think it's pretty damn good.
Asking
get down there, you and Kevin.
Is it a pizza place or a wings place that sells pizza? There's a difference.
It is.
That's all I'm asking.
It's just it's bar environment. That's what it is, but it's good. The pizza is delicious. The wings are good. You'll like both.
Okay, the pizza is delicious. He said it, Kevin. The pizza is delicious.
Get the cheese bread while you're at it too.
I can't wait. Yeah,
I don't do that. I don't. Yeah, that's too much bread. See, that's the whole reason I eat thin crust. Don't want all the bread. I don't do the cheese, all that cheese sticks. Very rarely, unless there's cinnamon butter. If you got cinnamon butter someplace, that's kind of hard to resist that.
Yeah.
All this food talk. When is George Leach coming to B-Town? Good question. Talked to George not too long ago. I think he's working on trying to get that ooey barbecue up this way. That's some good food. Definitely good food there. What, Kevin, what are you working on right now, by the way?
Yeah, well, I mentioned earlier, targeting story should be pretty good stuff.
We talked about that with I asked Coach yesterday about that rule, and he talked about that rule's got to be changed. Yeah. And it does. It's ridiculous. It is so beyond idiotic that it still hasn't already been changed, because there are so many times, if you're having to review it and look at it over and over, then that tells me it wasn't intentional, because an intentional act is pretty evident. And if it's not intentional, why in the hell are somebody getting kicked out of a game when you can go up, pick up a guy and body slam him and get an unnecessary roughness penalty, but you don't get kicked out?
Yeah.
But if you accidentally collide helmets with a guy, that's worthy of being booted from a game? That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of.
Well, now you have the 2 personal fouls too, and you can be ejected also. So, I mean, it's a combination of things. They're just trying to crack down on things. But, yeah, it's the subjectivity of it, I think, is really hard, and it's just hard to police right now. And
you've got to take the subjectivity out, because these guys are morons. They have replay that they still can't even figure things out. So you cannot have subjectivity if you have morons involved with it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think there are people who try to do the best they can, but the judgment.
Well, I'm not saying they're all morons.
Yeah. The judgment of it, there needs to be, and there needs to be a little more gray area, because, you're having too many kids get ejected right now. It's impacting games. And, it just really hurts, for a team that was that dominant that early in the game. And people say one player doesn't make a difference, but that's why certain players are all Americans and certain players aren't. I mean, they do make a difference. So some guys are just playmakers. And McFadden's a playmaker. I mean, he had a stripped fumble earlier in that game that led to 7 points. So,
and sometimes you have, I think he was just having one of those games. He was just on fire. He knew it. And one person should not be able to impact your entire defense like that. But he was having that kind of an impactful game. And it's really sad to see, but you still got to take care of business.
Exactly. Yeah. And Indiana should have found a way to overcome it. They could have scored more points throughout that game. 3 trips in the red zone, talk about those 3 trips in the red zone, 9 points, you still make it a 1-score game at the end if you kick those 3 field goals. And we know how good Campbell is. He's usually pretty automatic inside the 20. So,
I think, Dave, Pizza King is 2 separate. Well, actually, no, Pizza King and Arnie's are 2 separate franchises or franchisers. Yes, Arnie's is based in Lafayette. That's the one that we're talking about. But yeah. And then Tony says he thinks I'm borderline commie poo-pooing cheesy breadsticks. They're good. Don't get me wrong. I just don't want all that dough, man. They're great. I think they're delicious. But if you saw me 2 years ago, you'd understand why I'm poo-pooing cheesy breadsticks. I look like a cheesy breadstick 2 years ago. Michael says, I think they should do the targeting like the intentional foul 1 and 2 in basketball. Yeah, I think that's exactly where it's going to go. It has to be kicked out. There needs to be intent. Absolutely. And again, you're getting in the subjective guy of those guys though. So I think you're going to have to go to, unless you can tell it was just a completely intentional act.
You know when you see it. Yeah.
Yep, I'm heading. I got to remember to go. We got to remember to head that way. You know, we could stop there on the way to Bowling Green.
Can we?
You know, so there you go. Looking forward to it, man. Yeah, keep the great pizza places coming in from out and about. I like that. Very cool. Thank you, Brian. In Orleans, and thanks everybody. Look, I'm hungry now, man. I want some pizza. I haven't had pizza since yesterday. The only time I have pizza right now is once a week after the press conferences, but we're going to have to request from Thin Crust.
All right.
You should put that request in.
The 4 food groups: pizza, burger, beer, and wings, right?
Well, that's Bubba's 33 in Clarksville.
That's the 4 basic.
Hey, man, it's been fun as always. Big thanks to Mike DeCourcy, of course, and Kevin Brockway and John, the producer. But most importantly, big thanks to you guys. We're back tomorrow to do it again. Cal Neddenrip, Bob Kravitz, Dylan Sin, John, the producer, will be back. We'll see what else we can get together. Hey, we didn't have any of the clips, so tomorrow we'll have some clips from the press conferences. Listen to what the guys had to say as well. Anything else coming up, John?
I think you hit everything on the head.
Boom. All right.
We got our podcast. Podcast came out yesterday with me and Dustin. That'll be on the Hoosier later today. So
there you go. There's that. Kevin, what do you have coming up?
Yep. Talked to you about targeting story tomorrow, and a little bit on Peyton Hendershot too. Just really emotional in that press conference too, talking about what it means to be a team captain.
Yeah, that he walked off. It was nice to see that. Hey, we're back tomorrow to do it all again, and we'll look forward to it. I'm Jim Coyle. Until then, go out and do yourself something nice for somebody. And until then, I will see you on the radio.
All right, I'll see you. I got to get to the interviews.